I was scrolling through Instagram on Sunday morning when my world stopped. There, at the top of my feed, was a picture that made my blood freeze. My little brother Marcus, in a black tuxedo, kissing a woman in white. The caption read, "Just married. Perfect day with perfect people." I stared at the screen, waiting for it to make sense. This had to be a joke. But there were hundreds of likes already. Comments flooding in from family friends. Beautiful ceremony. So happy for you both. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through the wedding photos. There was our cousin Tyler as a groomsman. Our grandmother wiping tears. Uncle Paul raising a champagne glass. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. I refreshed the page 3 times, hoping the photos would disappear. The timestamp showed they were posted 2 hours ago. Which meant the wedding happened yesterday. While I was at home watching Netflix. In every photo, everyone looked genuinely happy. No one seemed to notice that someone was missing. Growing up, Marcus and I were inseparable. Only 2 years apart, we shared everything. The same room until we were teenagers. The same friends. We promised each other we'd be best men at each other's weddings. I remember the exact moment we made that pact. We were 12 and 10, sitting in our treehouse after watching our cousin's wedding. "When I get married," he said seriously, "you're going to be my best man." "And you'll be mine," I replied. We shook hands on it. A sacred promise between brothers. When Marcus started dating Vanessa 3 years ago, I was the first person he called. "I think she's the one," he whispered at midnight. I helped him pick out the engagement ring. Drove him to 3 different jewelry stores. I even lent him $500 when he was short. 6 months ago, he called me crying with joy. She said yes. The first words out of my mouth were, "I can't wait to stand beside you." After seeing the Instagram posts, I called Marcus immediately. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. By the 4th try, I realized his phone was probably off for the honeymoon. So I called my mom. "Oh honey," she said when she heard my voice. There was something different in her tone. Guilt, maybe. "Mom, Marcus got married yesterday. Were you there?" Silence. Long, uncomfortable silence. "Mom, answer me. Were you at my brother's wedding?" "Sweetheart, it was a very small ceremony. Very intimate." "That's not what I asked. Were you there?" Another pause. "Yes, I was there." My heart sank. Why wasn't I invited? It happened very quickly. They decided to move up the date because of venue availability. "Mom, stop lying. Instagram shows this was planned for months. Professional photographers. A full reception. You'll have to ask him that yourself," she said quietly, and hung up. I sat there feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. I drove to my parents' house that evening. Dad was in the garage, pretending to be busy with tools. When he saw me, his face went pale. "Hey son," he said, not making eye contact. "Dad, I need to know what happened yesterday. Why wasn't I invited?" He set down his wrench and leaned against his workbench. "Look, it's complicated." "Complicated how?" "Marcus felt like having you there might create some tension." "Tension?" "I'm his brother. You know how you can be sometimes. A little intense. A little overwhelming. He just wanted his day to be peaceful." The words hit me like a slap. Overwhelming. I'm his brother. And sometimes brothers don't see eye to eye. Vanessa was worried that you might say something to upset the mood. Like what? What have I ever done? Dad shrugged. You have strong opinions. You speak your mind. So you all decided it would be better to exclude me completely? We decided it would be better for everyone if the day went smoothly. He didn't deny it. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those wedding photos. My family celebrating without me. Making memories I'd never be part of. At 3 in the morning, I got in my car and drove to the venue. Brookside Manor, about 30 minutes outside town. The parking lot was empty except for a maintenance truck. I sat in my car, staring at the building where my brother had gotten married without me. I tried to imagine what it looked like yesterday. Cars filling the parking lot. People in fancy clothes. Marcus standing at the altar, nervous and excited. And me? I was probably making myself a sandwich and wondering why no one had called. The worst part was picturing someone asking, "Where's your brother?" And Marcus saying, he couldn't make it, like it was my choice. I sat there until sunrise, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The next few days passed in a blur. I kept checking my phone, expecting Marcus to call and explain everything. Maybe there was some misunderstanding. But my phone stayed silent. On Wednesday, I finally got a text from Marcus, back from honeymoon. Had an amazing time. Hope you're doing well. That was it. No explanation. No acknowledgement. Just a casual text like we were old acquaintances. I stared at that message for an hour, typing and deleting responses. Finally, I wrote back, "Congratulations on your wedding. Saw the photos on Instagram." His response came quickly, "Thanks. It was beautiful. Very peaceful." Peaceful. That word again. I waited for him to say more. To explain why I wasn't there. To apologize. But nothing came. That's when I realized this wasn't an oversight. This was intentional. My own brother had deliberately excluded me from the most important day of his life. The breaking point came Friday night. I was at dinner with my friend Alex when he casually mentioned seeing wedding photos on Facebook. "Your brother looked really happy," he said. "Beautiful ceremony." I nearly choked on my water. "You saw the photos?" "Yeah, Vanessa tagged me in a few. I went to high school with her." "Why do you look surprised?" "Alex, I wasn't at that wedding." His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "You're his brother." "I mean I wasn't invited." Alex stared at me like I'd just told him I was from Mars. "That's impossible." "Apparently not." He set down his fork completely. "There has to be some explanation." "Alex, this wasn't about lost mail. They deliberately didn't invite me." The look on his face was a mixture of shock and pity. "That's really messed up, man." Hearing someone else confirm that this was wrong made it real. My family had betrayed me. That night, I made a decision. If Marcus wanted to act like I didn't exist, fine. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I spent the weekend thinking about what to do. Part of me wanted to confront Marcus directly. But I knew that would just give them ammunition to call me intense. No, this required something different. Something that would make them understand exactly what they'd done. That's when I remembered the box. 2 years ago, when I moved apartments, I'd packed away all my childhood memories with Marcus. Photos, letters, little trinkets from our adventures together. Now, looking at that dusty box in my closet, I had a different idea. If Marcus wanted to pretend our history didn't matter, I would remind him exactly what he'd thrown away. Not with anger or accusations, but with proof of what we used to mean to each other. I would send him a wedding gift he'd never forget. I opened the box and started going through everything. Photos of us as kids, wearing matching Halloween costumes. Letters we'd written when I went to summer camp. Each item was a reminder of the bond we'd shared. I spent the next few days carefully curating the contents of my gift. Every item had to tell a story. I included the photo of us at ages 6 and 8, building a snowman in our front yard. We were both missing teeth, grinning with snow in our hair. On the back, In my mom's handwriting, best friends forever. I added the letter Marcus wrote me when I was away at college. He was only 16, but he'd poured his heart out about feeling lonely. "You're the only person who really gets me," he'd written. There was the ticket stub from the concert we went to for his 18th birthday. We'd saved up for months to afford the tickets. He'd hugged me so tight after the opening act, shouting, "This is the best night of my life." I included his college acceptance letter. His copy, which he'd given me because he was so excited to share the news. Each memory felt like a knife in my chest, but I kept going. At the bottom, I placed one final item, a USB drive containing a video message I'd recorded for his wedding day, back when I thought I'd be giving a best man speech. Finding Marcus's new address took some detective work. He and Vanessa had moved into a new apartment after the engagement, and I'd never been invited over. But our cousin Tyler posted a housewarming party photo with the address visible. I carefully packed everything in a white gift box with a silver ribbon. Nothing fancy or expensive looking. Just simple and elegant. I didn't include a card with my name. Instead, I wrote a simple note, "For Marcus, a reminder of where you came from. From someone who knew you before you forgot." I arranged for the box to be delivered on a Tuesday morning, when I knew Marcus would be at work and Vanessa would be home. The delivery confirmation came at 11:47 a.m. Package delivered to Vanessa Cole. I sat at my desk at work, staring at that confirmation email. There was no going back now. Whatever happened next, I'd said my piece. My phone was silent for the rest of the day. That evening, I went to the gym, made dinner, and watched a movie. Normal activities that felt anything but normal. Still nothing. The call came at 6:23 a.m. the next morning. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Marcus's voice was raw, like he'd been crying or shouting. "Good morning to you too, little brother." "Don't little brother me." What was that package supposed to be? Some kind of guilt trip? I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "Did you look through everything?" Of course I looked through it. Vanessa was sobbing. She thought it was from some ex. "And when you realized it was from me?" Silence. "Marcus, when you realized it was from your brother, the one you forgot to invite to your wedding, what did you think then?" "I thought you were being manipulative and cruel." "Manipulative? For sending you photos of us as kids? For trying to make me feel guilty about having the wedding I wanted?" "The wedding you wanted," I repeated slowly. "Without your brother. Without drama. Without someone who was going to judge every choice we made. When have I ever judged your choices, Marcus?" "You're being dramatic right now." I took a deep breath. "You know what's dramatic? Finding out your brother got married by seeing it on Instagram." "Did you watch the video, Marcus?" "What video?" "On the USB drive." "Did you watch it?" "No." "Watch it. Then call me back." I hung up. The video on that USB drive was something I'd recorded 3 months ago, right after Marcus had asked me to be his best man. I was practicing what I might say in my speech. In the video, I talked about watching Marcus grow up. About being proud to be his big brother. About all the times he'd surprised me with his kindness and intelligence. I talked about how excited I was to see him marry someone who recognized how special he was. How I couldn't wait to welcome Vanessa into our family. It was 7 minutes of pure love and pride. The speech of a big brother who couldn't wait to celebrate the most important day of his little brother's life. It was also proof of who I really was, versus who they'd convinced themselves I was. Marcus called back at 2:30 p.m. "I watched it," he said quietly. And I don't know what to say." "You could start with an explanation. Help me understand why the person in that video wasn't worthy of an invitation." "It wasn't about you being unworthy." "Then what was it about?" A long pause. Vanessa was worried. About what? About you saying something. About you not approving of her. Have I ever given her reason to think I don't approve? Not directly, but you ask a lot of questions. And Vanessa felt like you were always watching her. I ask questions because I care about your life. I know that now. So you chose her feelings over mine. She's my wife. And I'm your brother. I've been your brother for 24 years, Marcus. Word travels fast in our family. By Thursday, my cousin Tyler was texting me, heard you sent Marcus something. Mom wants to know if you're okay. Our Aunt Carol called Friday morning, your mother is worried sick about you. The narrative they were spinning was clear, I was the unstable one. The troublemaker. None of them asked why I hadn't been invited to the wedding. Instead, they were all focused on my reaction to being excluded. It was like getting punched in the face and then having everyone criticize you for bleeding. Sunday afternoon, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into my living room. She sat down on my couch. This has gone too far. You're tearing this family apart. I'm tearing the family apart. I sent my brother a box of childhood photos. You sent him a guilt trip designed to make him feel terrible about his wedding. His wedding that I wasn't invited to. That was their choice to make. And this was mine. Why can't you just let this go? It's done. They're married. Move on. Would you let it go, Mom? If your sister got married and didn't invite you? Because you make everything about you. There it was. The real reason. In their minds, I was selfish. Self-centered. The only thing I've ever wanted was to be included in his life. Maybe you've been too involved. Sometimes being supportive means showing up. Which I would have done, if I'd been invited. Marcus showed up at my apartment the following Tuesday. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside and let him pass. He sat heavily on my couch, putting his head in his hands. Vanessa moved back to her parents' house, he said without looking up. I'm sorry. Are you? Because you got what you wanted. What I wanted was to be at your wedding, Marcus. Not to end your marriage. I sat down across from him. What happened? She said she can't trust me anymore. She said if I could hide having a brother from her, what else was I hiding? You hid me from her. Not exactly. But I never talked about you much. About us. Why not? He finally looked up at me. Because she didn't like it. She thought we were too close. We talked twice a week. She said that was too much. So you chose her comfort over our relationship. I chose my future over my past. The words hung in the air between us like a wall. Is that what I was to you? I asked. Your past. I meant I was trying to be the man she needed me to be. And that man didn't have a brother. What questions, Marcus? Like when you asked why she quit her job right after we got engaged. Or when you mentioned that she seemed to drink a lot. I stared at him. Those were legitimate concerns. She said you were trying to break us up. And you believed her. I wanted her to feel secure. So you made me disappear. I thought once we were married, things would go back to normal. What changed? She had a panic attack. About you being there. About you potentially saying something that would embarrass her. So instead of reassuring her, you decided to exclude me completely. I thought it would be easier. Easier for who? For everyone. Except me. We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Marcus spoke again. I watched that video about 20 times. And I realized I threw away the best thing in my life to protect something that might not have been worth protecting. What are you going to do? I don't know. She won't answer my calls. Her parents won't let me in their house. What do you want to do? I want to fix things with you first. Everything else can wait. It was the first thing he'd said that felt completely honest. I hurt you, he continued. I know I hurt you. And I'm sorry doesn't feel like enough. You're right. It doesn't. Then what would be enough? I thought about it. Time. Consistency. Proof that this matters to you as much as it matters to me. How do I prove that? You start by acknowledging what really happened here. Not just to me, but to everyone. Stop letting them make me the villain. You want me to defend you. I want you to tell the truth. He nodded slowly. Okay. And I want you to understand that rebuilding trust takes time. You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to the way it was. I understand. If we're going to be brothers, you have to decide I'm worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. Then prove it. Over the next few weeks, Marcus slowly started to rebuild bridges. He called our mom and told her the real story. He explained that I hadn't been invited to the wedding. She didn't like hearing it, but she couldn't deny it either. He posted something on Facebook that surprised me. I owe my brother an apology. I made some bad decisions that hurt someone who's always been there for me. It wasn't detailed, but it was public. And it was honest. Vanessa, meanwhile, was making her own posts. Vague references to betrayal and family drama. Tyler called me after seeing Marcus's post. Finally, he said. I was wondering when someone was going to acknowledge how messed up this whole thing was. You knew it was wrong. Of course it was wrong. But nobody wanted to get involved. So you all just went along with it. I'm sorry about that. We should have said something. It was a small validation, but it felt significant. Marcus and I started meeting for coffee once a week. Neutral territory, no pressure. Just talking. Slowly rebuilding the connection we'd lost. During one of these meetings, he told me more about what had been happening with Vanessa. She was always worried about what people thought of her, he said. Especially your opinion. Why mine specifically? Because you matter to me. And she could tell. That should have been a good thing. She saw it as competition. You can love your wife and your brother. I know that now. The conversation I'd been dreading finally happened. Marcus asked if I wanted to meet Vanessa and try to work things out. She's willing to talk, he said. I wasn't sure I believed that, but I agreed to try. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Vanessa looked nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring and avoiding eye contact. I want to apologize, she said after we'd ordered our drinks. For what specifically? For asking Marcus not to invite you to the wedding. YD. Is life, his happiness. That includes you. But it feels like judgment. What would feel like support instead? She thought about it. Maybe just trusting that Marcus chose well. I do trust that. I've always trusted Marcus's judgment. I asked because I was curious about your plans. Whether you were happy with the decision. It felt like you were questioning my choices. I was trying to understand your choices. There's a difference. She looked at me for the first time. I think I've been interpreting your interest as criticism. And I think I could have been more careful about how I expressed my interest. It wasn't a perfect conversation, but it was honest. And it was a start. The breakthrough came 2 months after the wedding. Marcus called me on a Thursday evening, sounding excited. Vanessa wants to do something, he said. Okay. She wants to have a blessing ceremony. Like a small reception, but focused on the people who should have been there the first time. I was skeptical. What does that mean? It means she wants to include you. Properly. She wants you to give that speech you wrote. The one from the video? A new one. For the blessing ceremony. I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me was touched. Part of me was worried this was just another attempt to manage optics. What do you want, Marcus? Not what she wants. What do you want? I want my brother standing beside me when I promise to love my wife. The way it always should have been. And if I say yes, what happens next time she decides I'm too overwhelming? There won't be a next time. How can you be sure? Because I almost lost you once. I'm not going to let that happen again. What if she asks you to? Then I'll remind her that some things aren't negotiable. And you're one of them. It was exactly what I needed to hear. The blessing ceremony took place 3 months later in my parents' backyard. Small and simple, just immediate family and a few close friends. But everything the wedding should have been. I stood beside Marcus as his best man while they renewed their vows. I gave a speech about love and loyalty and the importance of choosing family every day. Vanessa cried during my speech. Not sad tears, but tears of recognition. Maybe understanding. Afterward, she hugged me for the first time since I'd known her. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not giving up on him. On us. Thank you for letting me back in. I should have let you in from the beginning. It wasn't an eraser for what had happened, but it was acknowledgement. And it was progress. My relationship with Marcus slowly returned to something that felt familiar, though it would never be exactly the same. There was a wariness now that hadn't been there before. But there was also appreciation. For what we had, and for how close we'd come to losing it. We talked more openly about boundaries and expectations. About the difference between being involved and being intrusive. Vanessa and I developed our own relationship, separate from Marcus. It was tentative at first, but genuine. She was different when she wasn't feeling defensive. I learned to express curiosity without seeming judgmental. She learned to interpret questions as interest rather than criticism. It wasn't perfect, but it was workable. A year later, Marcus and I were having lunch when he brought up the gift box. I still have everything you sent me, he said. Yeah. I look through it sometimes. When I need to remember who I used to be. And who's that? Someone who fights for the people he loves. Even when it's difficult. You fought for Vanessa. I fought for what I thought Vanessa wanted. That's different than fighting for her. How so? Fighting for someone means wanting them to be their best self. What I did was help her avoid dealing with her insecurities. And now? Now we work on them together. Instead of eliminating anyone who might trigger them. It was a mature perspective. One that gave me hope for both their marriage and our relationship. The real test came when Vanessa got a job offer in another state. A great opportunity, but it would mean moving away from family. The old Marcus might have made the decision based solely on what Vanessa wanted. The new Marcus called me to talk through the pros and cons. What do you think I should do? He asked. I think you should make the decision that's best for your marriage, but not forget that family matters too. That's not very helpful, he laughed. It's not supposed to be helpful. It's supposed to be honest. This is your choice to make. But I value your opinion. And I value being asked for it. But Marcus, the most important thing is that whatever you decide together. What do you mean? I mean if you move, you're choosing distance from family. Own that choice. And if we stay, then you're choosing family proximity over career advancement. Own that too. 2 weeks later, they decided to stay. Not because of pressure, but because they realized they weren't ready to leave their support system behind. The fact that Marcus included me in that support system meant everything. 2 years after the wedding that almost broke us, Marcus called with news that changed everything. Vanessa's pregnant, he said, his voice shaking with excitement. Congratulations. How are you feeling? Terrified. Excited. Overwhelmed. And Vanessa? She's good. And she said something yesterday that I wanted to share with you. What's that? She said she wants our kid to have an uncle who's present. Who's involved? Who cares enough to ask the hard questions when necessary? I felt my throat tighten. She said that? She said she realized that the things that scared her about you, your investment in our family, your willingness to speak up, those are exactly the qualities she wants our child to be surrounded by. That means a lot. It means you're going to be the best uncle in the world. I'll do my best. 6 months later, I was in the delivery room when my nephew was born. Not because Marcus asked me to be there, but because Vanessa did. Family should be present for the important moments, she said simply. It was her way of acknowledging what we'd all learned, that excluding people you love doesn't protect anyone. The gift box I'd sent Marcus still sits on a shelf in their living room. Sometimes, when I visit, I catch their son looking through the photos of his dad and uncle as kids. Tell me the story about the snowman, he says, pointing to the picture of Marcus and me at ages 6 and 8. Marcus tells him about how we built the world's ugliest snowman, complete with a carrot nose that kept falling off. Were you best friends? His son asks. We are best friends, Marcus corrects. Sometimes brothers fight, and sometimes they make mistakes, but they always find their way back to each other. It's a simple explanation for a complicated story, but it captures the essential truth. Last month, Marcus asked me to be his son's godfather. Not as an apology for the past, but as a recognition of the present. I want him to know that family shows up, Marcus said. Even when it's hard. I'll always show up, I promised. I know. That's why I'm asking. The irony isn't lost on me. The qualities that once made me too overwhelming are now the reasons I'm being entrusted with the most important role in their child's life. Sometimes people ask me if I regret sending that gift box. If I think there might have been an easier way to handle the situation. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe if I'd waited longer, Marcus would have come to his senses on his own. But I also know this, sometimes the people we love need to be reminded of who they used to be before they can figure out who they want to become. That box wasn't just a collection of memories. It was proof of a relationship worth fighting for. Evidence that we'd been something special before we became something broken. It forced Marcus to confront the gap between the brother he'd been and the brother he'd become. It made him choose, the comfortable lie that I was the problem, or the difficult truth that he'd abandoned someone who loved him unconditionally. He chose truth. And that choice changed everything. My relationship with Marcus is stronger now than it ever was before. Not because we pretend the betrayal didn't happen, but because we learn from it. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone isn't what they want, it's what they need to remember who they really are. Marcus didn't invite me to his wedding. But in the end, I gave him something more valuable. I gave him the chance to choose love over fear. Brotherhood over convenience. Truth over comfort. And he chose right.